Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. It means we're brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos fired up. You're hanging out with us. Lots and lots to get to over those 2 hours. Saints training camp day 6. We had a bit of a walkthrough period at Saints training camp, but I want to dive into some of the things that Ross Jackson's written over LouisianaSports.net that are pretty telling this early in training camp. So we'll get into some of that in 15 minutes. Glen West here talking Tigers at 1:30. Josh Pearson says goodbye to LSU. I'll give some of my thoughts on his goodbye message and kind of his very interesting career as a Tiger over the last 4 years. My in-depth chart feature today is on the edge group at LSU. Just a spoiler for that at 2 o'clock. I'm pretty high on that position group right now as we get closer and closer to camp. Sharif Ishak from Saints camp in an hour and a half talking black and gold. So lots and lots and lots to do. Lock us in. Let's start the same way we do every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
You can find a preseason poll, preseason projection for college football just about anywhere you click on the interwebs these days. And one of the ones that I look at annually is Bill Connelly's over at ESPN. And I was taking a look at it today. And it is exceptionally analytical. Lots of numbers, lots of decimal points, lots of rankings, lots of formulas, lots of charts. That's the way Bill Connelly handles his writing at ESPN. And for some people, that's like gold. For some people, it's just white noise. Just get rid of it. And that's okay either way, but we're sitting here in late July, and that's kind of the season of the year that we're in. And I did take an interest in what Bill had to write about the Southeastern Conference today and what he had to write about LSU today. And I will start with the returning production. This is something that Matt on After Further Review talks about a lot and that I find interesting as well. When you look at returning production, LSU is in the middle of the pack of the SEC, closer to the top, and they return about 65% of their offensive production. That's 23rd in the country. The teams ahead of LSU in returning production, which, by the way, is weighted heavily towards quarterbacks. So Garrett Nussbaum coming back is huge, even though you lose Mason Taylor and you lose Kyron Lacey and you lose a lot of your offensive line. Like the fact that you've got your quarterback through for 4,000 yards is weighted here. Auburn's got more returning production back. Oklahoma, which surprised me, has more returning production back. Texas A&M, and then Vanderbilt is actually the top of the SEC at third nationally in returning production. LSU returns 65% on offense and 64% on defense, according to Bill Connelly. So that's a good place to start. Then I immediately go to, okay, well, what does he think about this year's team? And I do that with an understanding of what the vibe is in Baton Rouge right now. And the vibe in Baton Rouge right now is sky high. Like, it just is. People expect this LSU team to have a quarterback that is among the best in the country, that is competing for a Heisman Trophy. They expect this team to compete at the top of the SEC with the likes of Georgia and Texas and Alabama and whoever else you want to toss into that mix. And people here expect LSU to be in the playoff. And we kind of know based on 1 year, which is a small sample size, and the rules have changed slightly, but a small sample size suggests that you need to win 10 games to get into the college football playoff. 11, obviously you're in. 12, obviously you're in. 10, I still feel like after 1 year sample size, I still feel like 10 gets you in. So what does Bill Connelly and his metrics and his analytics have to say about LSU and their chances to get to 10 wins? Well, it's a little daunting, because Bill Connelly has his thought on LSU's win total at 8.5. And some of that is baked into the fact that he's looking at LSU from a strength of schedule perspective, and that's the 9th most difficult in the country. He says their offense is second in terms of S&P+. He says their defense is 23rd in the country. And all that, if you take out the 8.5 wins, I think LSU say, okay, second offense in the country, that sounds really good. I'll sign up for that. And if I tell you 23rd in defense in the country, you're like, oh, I'll sign up for that for sure. Just a season removed from being up around 100. So, yeah, I'll take top 25 defense all day long. And Connelly writes that. But that 8.5 is going to get LSU fans in a bit of a twit because they don't think that this is an 8-win team. And they don't care on the high end if it's a 9-win team because 9-3 is probably not good enough. I'll need to see that to believe it. So that sent me, while I don't think it's unreasonable, first of all, I think 8-4 is a possibility for LSU. I think 9-3 is a possibility for LSU. I think 10-2 is a possibility for LSU. I think at 11-1 is a little bit of a stretch. So I think on the high end, LSU is a playoff team. I think on the low end, you're 8-4. I don't see some sort of bottom falling out and it's 6-6 and all that. But I'm not going to rule that out here before I've watched them take one snap in practice. But I'm hopeful that they're a 10-win team. I've written that that I think they're a likely 10-win team. So the next step in my journey here was to go, okay, I've seen this. I know LSU fans aren't going to like it. So let's look at what his metrics said entering the last few seasons. And I went back and looked at the past 4 seasons. I didn't do 2020 because I don't want to do 2020. That's a wasted year. But I did 2024, 2023, 2022, and 2021. And here's what I found. In 2024, entering last season, Connelly had LSU ranked in 9th preseason, same as this year. He had them as a 9.2 win team and a 5.7 SEC win team. So about 9 wins overall, close to 6 wins in the league. And LSU won 8 games last year and won 5 league games last year. So not completely off. Go back to 2023, Jaden Daniels' Heisman Trophy season. I don't know if anybody quite saw that coming, along with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, but you also couldn't have possibly forecasted that defense to look that bad. So what did he say entering the 2023 season? He had him 5th in the country preseason. 5th. Had 9 wins and then 5.5 SEC wins. And LSU went 9-3 and won 6 league games. So you had right on the money for their overall wins, and you had 6-2 on a 5.5 win SEC mark. That's right about correct. Go back to 2022, Brian Kelly's first year at LSU. 28th preseason. 6.5 wins overall is what he had him forecasted for. 3.1 in the league. We know LSU greatly outpaced that. LSU won 9 games that year, so 2.5 over the total that Connelly had projected, and won double the SEC games. LSU went 6-2. He had LSU as a 3.1 win SEC team. So undershot there. And then 2021, coming off the COVID year that was weird, and you come back, it's 2021. This ended up being Ed's last season, and LSU was 26th preseason. I don't know what that baked in with Miles Brennan here. I'm not sure. But he had him at 7.2 wins overall. They won 6. He had them at 3.9 SEC wins. They won 3. So not far off. Essentially, last year, he hit it. He just barely overshot where LSU finished. LSU was a little bit worse. 2023, he hit it right on the number. 2022, he didn't see in Brian Kelly's first year LSU ripping off the total that it did, and he missed the overall wins by 2.5 and was 1 high on the losses. And then in 2021, he had LSU as a pretty mediocre football team, and LSU was a pretty mediocre football team. So this is to suggest that like his forecasts have been pretty good outside of Brian Kelly's first year where LSU won the SEC West. And so he looks at this and says that it's between an 8 and a 9 win team, and it's probably a 5-3 SEC team. And if you extrapolate that out, it's probably a loss to Clemson, 3 SEC losses, and you're sitting there 9-3, 8-4. That is what Bill Connelly's number suggests. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think it's on the low end. I think it's on the low end because I would be really surprised if LSU went out there and went 7-5. Like that just seems really unlikely even with that schedule. You'd have to lose your road games. You have to lose Clemson. You got to lose Ole Miss. You got to lose Bama. You got to lose Oklahoma. And then you'd have to drop one more at home against somebody like A&M, Arkansas, Vanderbilt. That almost seems worse than worst case scenario. With the amount of talent that LSU's brought in, I think that this prognostication, while not unreasonable, is on the low end. And all you've got to do is outperform it by one game, and you end up in the playoff. And we know that so many SEC games, especially with the good teams, come down to the last 7 minutes. And if you can win the last 7 minutes, then you win the game and you flip that one loss to a one win, and you're right where you need to be. So it's, to me, I find it reasonable. I find it on the low end, and I'm hopeful, based on where LSU is, that they're a playoff team. But you look at them ranked 9th in the country, and you bake in automatic bids for conference champions, and you're right on the edge of the playoff. And that's basically where everyone has LSU forecast at this point, right on the back end of the at-large teams. All right, that's just one guy's thoughts. Bill Connelly and his big old computer. We'll continue to talk about it as we move forward. Glen West in 15 minutes, talking all things LSU. So pumped up to tell you about our new Tuesday sponsor. It is Daryl May and Trusty Properties. Daryl is a lifelong Baton Rouge resident, and he knows the ins and outs of our area, unlike many in the marketplace. If you are looking for land to use as a hunting property, land to use as an agricultural property, land to use just as your retirement home or your place outside the city as a second home, and you want acreage, Daryl is the guy you've got to call. I will give you his phone number here at the end of the read, so if you're interested in that, get your phone out and get ready. But we're talking about a guy that's licensed in Louisiana, so if you're looking into Felicianas, if you're looking at Point Capee, he can help you out with all of that. He's licensed in Mississippi as well, looking at Woodville all the way up to Natchez. He can help you with that. He's an expert in this field. He's been doing it a long time, and he's happy to help you with it. It's Daryl May. Give him a phone call. As I told you, I'll give you his phone number each and every Tuesday as we move forward here as they bring you our Tuesday shows. Daryl's at 225-268-6915. Again, it's in the 225 area code, 268-6915. You can also call Trusty Properties directly at 225-766-6112. It's Daryl May and Trusty Properties. It's a name you can trust. We'll move forward here talking a little bit of Saints. There's one thing that I've absolutely drawn from the first week of Saints camp. I'll tell you about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Glen West will be along in 15 minutes talking Tigers. LSU reports to camp here in a matter of hours at this point. It is officially time to put on the shoulder pads for the Fighting Tigers as they were in the football operations building getting fitted earlier today. So quite literally putting on the helmets, pads, gloves, all that, getting ready for their first day of practice. And we'll be out there as quickly as they let us. We haven't gotten the schedule out there yet, but I'm assuming that we'll be out there on Thursday morning. That's a guess because I haven't seen the schedule yet, but that's my assumption at this point. Let's talk some Saints. This early in camp, you got to be careful. Like, it's fun to start making huge generalizations and forecasting breakout stars and making prognostications, and that's a blast. But you got to be careful, right? Because there's just so little that's going on. When they're out there in T-shirts and shoulder pads, there's not a ton that can be gleaned. They're learning where to be, acclimating to the heat, understanding terminology, figuring out a lot of things chemistry-wise. Then they put the pads on for the first day, and you saw a little bit more physicality yesterday. But there's not a ton you can glean that you know. But one of the things that I've kept tabs on via the reports and feel comfortable in saying is that they are committed at this point to making this a quarterback competition. As me covering the Saints and you listening as Saints fans, like, you have not seen something like this in decades where you are actually handicapping a true quarterback competition. Like, yeah, Taysom was, but was he? And, you know, last year you were looking at Haener and Rattler, but that's as a backup. And do you even know if they're your franchise? Like, this is a new dynamic with a quarterback that's the highest selected quarterback in 50 years since Archie Manning. And then another quarterback who's got some talent and started some games last year. And we know that the hit rate on quarterbacks isn't very high. So you want to make sure you're giving everybody every opportunity you can to be a hit. And it would be easy for Kellen Moore to come in and say, hey, Spencer, appreciate you being here. I want you to work really hard. We're going to work with you. But we took Shuck and we're going to develop him. So just get your reps when you can. Like, it would be easy to do that. But that's not been the approach thus far at all. Spencer Rattler took the first reps the first day for seniority. And then if you just look at yesterday's reps, first time in pads, Tyler Shuck, 22, Spencer Rattler, 20. And then if you look at it for the totality of the passing attempts in practice, like Shuck's thrown 41, Rattler's thrown 57. So they are very truly making this a competition. You can have your thoughts on who's going to win it or not, and you could say, well, they drafted Shuck, like they're gonna give him the football. And that may be true. Like, he may be the starting quarterback, and they may really think that in the back of their mind. But if they knew that, wouldn't he be getting 65, 70% of the reps? If they knew that? I tend to think so. As a rookie, like, if you want to rest Drew Brees in year 14 because, you know, he's recovering from an ankle issue, yeah, give the other guy a bunch of reps. But in this case, like, I need to get my starting quarterback reps if I know who he is. And I just don't think they know. I think they are truly opening this up. And Ross Jackson is doing an awesome job over at LouisianaSports.net at keeping a running total on these two guys. And Tyler Shuck is 24 of 41 with 3 touchdowns through the first week. So, and Spencer Rattler is 40 of 57 with 6 passing touchdowns. He's run for 2 more. He's also thrown 2 interceptions. So they are very much getting all of these young quarterbacks repetitions daily. And they're not playing favorites. And I think that's a good idea. I think you've got so much time in an NFL training camp that taking things slowly and observing all your options is a very good thing. We cover 2 teams here. We cover LSU, which it feels like a long time to get ready for that first game, but it's really not. Like, you start August 1, we'll call it. Maybe it's July 30, but August 1, you're playing at the end of August. The Saints report in mid-July, and they don't play till the second week of September. So it's a different ramp up. LSU's got to get their guys in and go. The Saints have time. So it's just we're covering 2 teams. It's a different way to look at the 2 buildups. And the Saints will get preseason games on television, and LSU will scrimmage behind closed doors, and we'll get a little better feel for what the Saints are doing in their scrimmage settings and their preseason settings than what LSU's doing. But to me, while the media is allowed out there at Saints camp and is able to chart these and watch who's working with the 1s and watch who's working with the 2s and watch who's getting more throws and who's getting less throws, it is evident that through the first week of camp, they are making this an even battle. When you listen and read to folks that are there each and every day, like, I'm not counting on Kellen Moore to give me a lot of juice on the quarterback competition in an interview setting, in a press conference setting. Like, that's not going to happen. The best information you're going to get is from the opinion of those that are covering the team. But when I look at it, like, I favor Shuck, but I think to dismiss Rattler would be a little bit premature. Like, if you made me handicap it today, I would say 70-30 Shuck will be the starter in the first game, barring any sort of injury or big-time setback in training camp. I would say 70-30. But that leaves a 30% chance. 30% chance is not insignificant. I thought Rattler last year was okay in massively adverse circumstances, and that's why I've consistently talked about putting these young quarterbacks in an ecosystem that is conducive to development. And they're going to do the best they can. Last year, when you get in the middle of the season and you're throwing a quarterback in there and your whole wide receiving core is hurt and your whole offensive line is hurt, like, there's just not a lot you can do. But right now, the Saints have a healthy front five. The Saints have a healthy wide receiver unit. The Saints have a healthy and deep in terms of options running back group. When you run through Kamara and you run through Kendre Miller and Clyde's still there and you bring in Cam Akers, and like, they've got bodies at running back as well. So right now, it's about as healthy as this organization is capable of making it right now. And to me, that gives you the best opportunity to observe what these guys are. I'm not going to hold Spencer Rattler playing behind a duct tape offensive line, throwing to Bub Beans and whoever else is out there. Like, I'm not holding that against him. I would much rather see what he does in this setting when you do have the offensive line healthy and you do have Olave and Shaheed, you do have healthy Kamara. Like, that's a more beneficial environment for a quarterback to be in. So I'm not going to dismiss Rattler based on last year, but I am going to give Shuck the advantage based on him being drafted by this staff this year. But I'm going to continue to read and to monitor how many reps these guys get. And again, you're looking at Shuck completing somewhere in the neighborhood of 55% of his throws for 3 touchdowns. You're looking at Rattler completing somewhere in the neighborhood of 65% of his throws, 6 touchdowns, 2 rushing with those 2 interceptions. Nobody's made a big leap. Nobody has completely imploded. Rattler's made more plays and made more mistakes. Shuck has been a little bit more consistent, if not massively exciting with the reps that he's put in thus far. So I'm not going to draw much more than that. I'm going to stop right there and not tell you, yep, Shuck's the guy, or Rattler's surging. Rattler was the first guy to take the snaps. No, I'm going to leave it right there, where I just think, okay, based on a week's worth, not one practice, not okay, Spencer Rattler went out there and was the first rep guy the first day. No, we've gone beyond that. We've now gone through the padded practices, a padded practice. We've gone through a walkthrough, gone through the 7-on-7 drills, looked at first team, look at second team. They're clearly performing better with the first team than they do the second team. That gets a little hairy with the offensive line up front. But I think that this is really a competition right now. Maybe that changes after a week and a half and the reps start to really shift. And I think that would be a good thing if they do either way. But right now, I think they're running neck and neck at this point. Just my 2 cents. And in reading what we have from the folks down there that are covering things in New Orleans, Sharif Ishak will be here in an hour, and we'll get his thoughts on whether or not he thinks this is truly a competition at this point, as he's been watching the black and gold all week long. All right, if you're looking for Saints coverage, check it out, LouisianaSports.net for free. Ross's practice reports are incredibly detailed, incredibly thorough, and you're going to get another one from their walkthrough today. And then you can find my stuff, Hunt on Saints on Twitter, Hunt on Saints on YouTube, or wherever you find your podcast, Hunt on Saints. All right, when we come back, we'll talk to Glen West, all things Tigers, next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Anywhere you are in the state of Louisiana, Jonathan Carver and his team are based right here in Baton Rouge, can help you out. They're an independent broker. What does that mean? It means they've got contracts with dozens of markets that are happy to place your policy. So they can shop around and make sure that you've got the best coverage and that you're paying the correct price. That's their promise to you. They will also tell you that, hey, they're going to audit your policy for free. Doesn't cost you anything for them to go in and do what you don't really want to do and read that entire policy language and look at the exclusions and look at some of the contingencies that are in place. And if you've got some corners that have been cut to save you a buck here or there, so that your agent could win the business, but it's going to hurt you if a storm rolls through, if you have a cyber attack or a bad car accident, you won't know about that until it actually happens, unless you let the folks at the Highland Insurance Group come audit what you've got. Let them do that. Make sure your program is in the right spot. It's the Highland Insurance Group. You can find them online at HighlandIG.com. That's HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Tuesday shows brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. You can check him out at trustyproperties.com. Looking for land for hunting camp, looking for land for False River home, looking for land in Mississippi to build on. Daryl May got you covered over at Trusty Properties. All right, Glen West joins us, senior writer over at Go 24/7. Good enough to join us each and every Tuesday. He does so on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Glenn, how we doing?
Doing great, Hunt. Just bought myself a new tube of the SPF 55 ready for fall camp. So we're hopefully we'll get a couple accesses this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of waiting for the old schedule to pop out. I told my wife that I would have one in short order because we're thinking if we're going to go to the North Shore to play golf and hang out with some people on Sunday. And I don't know if there's a practice I need to get covered, but I'm assuming that will show up at some point. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm curious where you're headed when we eventually do get out there.
Yeah, I think for me, the offensive line is probably going to be one of the first things you look at just in terms of who's starting. Are they going to keep the same kind of 5-man group that they had back in the spring? Just a quick refresher for those who maybe kind of missed it or just haven't been up to tune, or just it's been a while since we've been out there. So Tyree Adams, Paul Mubenga, DJ Chester, Cohen Eccles, Weston Davis. That was a pretty popular 5-man group that LSU rolled out there, but I would assume guys like Josh Thompson, Braylon Moore, Carius Kern, maybe even Solomon Thomas can weasel their way into the first team reps here early in fall camp and see if they can't try to earn some spots with the first or second team. So I just think there's so many options that LSU can go there. They have no shortage of talent. It's just about finding the right 5 that are going to play the best against Clemson, and I think the next 4 or 5 weeks will give us a clearer understanding of what that looks like. And then, obviously the defensive side of the ball, there's a lot of things to really look for just in terms of the secondary and a couple new pieces that they're implementing in Bernard Gooden and AJ Halsey, who we haven't been able to see yet. Does a new face kind of crack the cornerback rotation, whether it's DJ Pickett or PJ Woodland or Jakeem Jackson, or one of those guys maybe pop next to Monster Delane. So a lot of questions for sure, and a lot of things that LSU will want to figure out. But this is going to be a really interesting and fun fall camp experience, I think.
You kind of ran the gamut there. Let's go back to offensive line. DJ Chester, your thoughts on his redshirt freshman season and what you think is in store for him this year?
Yeah, I mean, certainly some bumps and bruises along the way for DJ last year with that full-time center position, but thought he came back and looked pretty good at center in spring, and certainly you can use any kinds of flaws or tough experiences to your advantage the next season if you work hard enough. And everything that I know and have heard about him is that he's a very hard worker. He's very bright. We've talked to him a couple different times in the media going back to last year, and somebody that I think is really working to improve on some of his maybe deficiencies or weaknesses that he had last year. I do think that guard is a spot for him that will be explored a little bit more here in fall camp. We brought in a veteran center in Braylon Moore. I would imagine LSU gives him some kind of first team reps in fall camp and seeing what that looks like with Chester and him at guard. So I think that's going to be something that's explored here. But I think, look, Chester is a really solid athlete. He's obviously a huge human being and a guy that LSU needs to really take that next step for them to be the kind of offense they want to be next year.
And then some of the other names you mentioned more just then, but Josh Thompson and Carius Kern's also interesting for different reasons than Thompson. Do you think that either one of those two guys cracks into the top 5 before Clemson?
Yeah, I could see a scenario where both of those guys crack into the top 5. I mean, you could certainly have a situation where it's Tyree Adams at left tackle, DJ Chester at left guard, Braylon Moore at center, Josh Thompson at right guard, Weston Davis at right tackle. You could also slide in Carius Kern at left guard or left tackle. I mean, that's where he's basically been playing for most of the offseason, is the left side of the ball. So, yeah, I think Carius Kern's going to have, a lot to say about this. He's somebody that I asked Garrett Nussmeier about back at SEC Media Days, and he talked really glowingly about Carius Kern and just the work ethic he's had in the weight room and the progress that he's already seen him make during his first offseason with the program. So I could certainly see a situation where Carius Kern takes one of those 5 spots, and then Josh Thompson is a guy that has some versatility. I think could play right guard or right tackle for LSU. just based off of what Coach Kelly has told us publicly, it sounds like Weston Davis has a pretty good handle on right tackle going into fall camp. So maybe right guard is the position that you look at Josh Thompson at first. And so they brought these two veterans, Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson, in not to sit them on the bench. They're going to try to give them every opportunity to win those two jobs on the inside, and LSU needs that. They need a couple veterans and guys with playing experience at the collegiate level and have good size and good experience at this level. So those are two guys that I think are really going to show LSU this fall camp what they're made of.
1 to 10, what's your confidence level in the LSU offensive line for the Clemson game?
It's a tough one because I think the Clemson defensive line is probably the toughest front that LSU will face all season, and so when you have to do that the first game of the year with a group that's pretty much being put together in one off season, that's not the easiest thing to do. I would probably sit right in the middle right now at a 5 or a 6. I mean, there's still a lot that has to be figured out there on the offensive line, and I just don't think we've seen enough from that group. You go back to the spring, I thought the edge rushers dominated the spring and were really, really good. Those are all veteran guys who've had a lot of experience in Peyton and Pyburn and Jamari Butler. And those are the same kind of players that they're going to be facing week 1 against that Clemson front. So, that's not to say that they won't go out there and hold their own, in a month's time when that game's ready to kick off. But I think there's just still a little bit too much up in the air to have, a ton of confidence that it's going to be smooth sailing for the offensive line in that first game.
All right, I'm going to ask kind of a long question here, which you're not supposed to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. So is there a chance that because the coaching staff may feel like you and I do, where the offensive line could be a little bit shaky, that they've got enough time to plan for that? Like, it's tough to plan for Will Campbell and Emory Jones and Garrett Dellinger not really being able to push USC around. Like, you would have thought they were going to go up there and do that, and they couldn't. Is there a thought that maybe that could be an advantage? Like, hey, they know that they're going to have to do some things a little bit differently, so they can be prepared if Clemson's tough to block.
Well, I think what really benefits the LSU offense here is that they have a lot of really speedy weapons and a lot of guys that they can get the ball out to quickly. They have a lot of size. I'm not sure you're going to see a ton of play action, but yeah, I do think it's something that you can prepare for a little bit better. Take out some of maybe the more slower developing plays and just try to do quick hitters and just try to get yourself off to a good rhythm early in the game. And that's something that you saw even in that first drive against USC. I think LSU went all the way down to the field and they couldn't punch it in on 4th and goal or something like that, but they were very meticulous about their drive, and I think that was a 10 or 11 play drive or something like that. So you look at kind of the just the quick hitters, the guys and the athletes that LSU has at its disposal, and I think you can still have success offensively in this game even if you are a little bit concerned about the offensive line holding up. So it's just going to be about like you said, planning far in advance about what you like about this team, what you like about this offense, and what you think you can have some success with against Clemson.
As far as the running back group goes, running behind that line, how do you feel about the talent and the depth, both of them?
Yeah, Caden Durham's an all-SEC caliber player. If he stays healthy this year, if he gets 15, 16, 17 touches a game, he could very well eclipse 1,000 yards and be one of the more dynamic runners, I think, in this conference. He's got that potential in him. I think the bigger question for me is just kind of how they complement him with those guys in Caleb Jackson, Harlan Berry, JT Lindsey. Jackson's a guy that we talked to back in the spring and said he's trying to shed some weight. He thought he got maybe a little too big last year, and you could certainly see that maybe in his performance. And so he's going to get back to that 220 to 225 range that he was as a true freshman that we saw, and where he was a very explosive back for LSU in pretty much every game that he played in. So I think he's going to have a role. I think Harlan Berry is a guy, just in watching him and during these summer camps and in the off season, things of that nature. He's added a lot of upper body mass to his frame, and just watching him or just walking out there in summer camp and watching him, he was somebody that really stood out to me in terms of the amount of effort and just what he's put into his body in the weight room. So I think he's somebody that's going to have a role, whether it's in the passing game, check down, screen game. he's an explosive athlete that you're going to want to get out on the perimeter and have him make guys miss, and he's got that potential in his game as well. So I think those two, Jackson and Barry, are the ones that we've seen so far that I could see, complementing what Durham is able to do. And I think Lindsey's the guy that has, a lot of long-term potential with him and Barry in that backfield. So it's a good group. It's, it's one that can't afford too many injuries, but if those guys stay healthy and they keep them all in check, then they're all going to have their opportunities to feed in this offense, I think.
We can be on the balcony when they let us in. Are we down on the field level? What are your thoughts on where we get to stand this time around? Seems to change.
I'd like to be on the field, kind of change it up a little bit. I was getting a little, tired of the balcony towards the end there, but I have a feeling that they're going to keep it where it was in the spring. It's just my educated guess.
All right, we'll see you out there whenever they let us go. We'll appreciate some time.
All right, thanks, Hunt. Appreciate you.
Glen West, senior writer at Go 24/7, good enough to chat with us on Tuesdays. Kind of a musical, for the entirety of the Les era and the Ogeron era. The media was on one sideline where if they were on, there's 4 fields out there. If they were on the 2 closest, you'd get a pretty good look. If they went to the other fields, it was a little tougher. But they let us kind of roam that sideline freely. And then once all of a sudden, they kind of put us up on this new balcony. And it gets a little crowded, and there are some fields that are really far away. And it's just not that y'all are crying for us watching football practice for work, but I will say I'm trying to give you some stuff. And there are times where they go to the field two away, and they're doing like a 11 on 11. I can't see squat over there. I don't know who's playing right tackle. They're 185 yards away. I don't know what's going on. So we'll see. It's hard for me to relay quality content when there's a 21-person mosh pit 155 yards away from me, and I'm standing on a second-floor balcony trying to crane my neck around Cobble and Jacques' cameras around there. It could be a tough chore, all right? I'm sure y'all all feel really bad for us. We'll see where they send us later on this week, but we'll see Glenn out there, and we appreciate a little bit of time here on this Tuesday. We'll step aside, come back, close it out. Josh Pearson penned a very nice letter for LSU. I'll give you some of my thoughts on his awesome 4-year career when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. If I'm talking to you and you're driving around, the odds are you're probably not behind the wheel of a Genesis, and the odds are you've never been behind the wheel of a Genesis. Change that. Whenever it is that you're in the market for a new vehicle, whether that's with school coming up and you want to get behind the wheel of a new ride, if you're thinking about maybe first of the year, your lease is about up, just give Genesis a shot. No matter if you're looking for the sedan, you're looking for an SUV, they've got something to fit your needs over at Genesis, and every single detail is going to be meticulously taken care of for you at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Their warranties are awesome. I've been telling you for over a year about their 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and that's industry leading. It's the powertrain warranty. It's phenomenal. But they've also got a couple of really, really impressive warranties that I haven't told you about because they're fairly new. 5 years, 60,000 miles bumper to bumper. 5 years, 60,000 miles bumper to bumper. Roadside assistance is included. We're talking about the only fully exclusive Genesis dealer in the state. So get behind the wheel of the GV80, maybe the GV80 Coupe. Get those low APR options they've got available for you at Genesis of Baton Rouge. They're on airline at PQ. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. You can always start that buying process online. GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Tuesday shows brought to you by Daryl May from Trusty Properties. Looking to get into new land. Well, that's in Point Capee, Feliciana's up in Mississippi. Daryl May at Trusty Properties can help you with that. Josh Pearson pinned his thank you LSU note on social media earlier today. It started with, I thank God every day for blessing me with the opportunity to be a Tiger. I grew up praying that one day I would be able to put on that LSU uniform and go represent the state of Louisiana. Went on to thank his mom and dad, his siblings, girlfriend. Said, I'm going to miss all the time spent in the locker room with my teammates, showing up a few hours early just to sit around and hang out. Will always be some of my favorite times at LSU. He thanked his coaches and then said, Tiger fans, thank you all so much for making these past 4 years the best of my life, from sticking it out through the long rain delays to buying all the Jello shots in Omaha. You guys always made it easy to go out there and compete. I could have never imagined I'd be leaving LSU as a 2-time national champion. Excited and looking forward to the next chapter of my life, whatever that may be, is what Josh Pearson had to say at LSU. You know, it struck me when Pearson got a standing ovation in his final at bat. It was in the Super Regional. LSU had a big lead. He had not started that game. He came in and pinch hit and actually struck out on 3 pitches. And later on, Jake Brown, who he pinch hit for, said, I don't think I've ever seen anybody get a standing ovation for striking out on 3 pitches. But Pearson did. And usually those standing ovations are reserved for All-Americans and future first-round draft picks. And Pearson's neither one of those. He didn't get drafted in the 20-round draft and was never an All-American in his 4 years. But he did have an ability to make a big swing in a big spot. He was an all-regional selection 3 of his 4 years at LSU. He hit 6 NCAA tournament home runs, 2 of them in the 2023 College World Series. Hit a grand slam in the 2025 Super Regional against West Virginia. For 4 years, he finished with a .399 on-base percentage, hit 27 home runs. And, of course, probably the most indelible moment of Pearson's career is none of those home runs that he hit, but more importantly, the catch he made on Wyatt Langford's line drive down into left field in the game 1 against Florida, where if he doesn't catch that ball, doesn't get the read off the bat and make that play in left field, that game's over and LSU loses, and you saw how game 2 went. So you needed to win game 1, and Pearson's play out in left field did that. And so Josh Pearson leaves LSU as an incredibly decorated player in terms of postseason accomplishment, not necessarily the most statistically jawing resume that you've ever seen from an LSU player, but he just kind of gave you solid play. He played really good defense. One thing that I think that a lot of people don't give Josh credit for is his speed. He runs really well. He doesn't have a huge arm. He's not overly big, but he plays really good defense because he gets good reads and he runs really well. And he hit the ball out of the ballpark a little bit. He had some huge swings when LSU had to have them. And he also, and this is really important, never batted an eye about the role he was asked to play over the 4 years. He broke into the starting lineup in Jay Johnson's first year as a freshman and was a stalwart on that team late. It was obviously a team that was led by Cruz and led by Morgan and led by Jordan Thompson and Dugas and those guys. No, Dugas wasn't as much on that team. Yeah, he was. No, Dugas wasn't as much on that team. He was the next year. Dugas didn't play a ton on that team. But Pearson was a big piece to that. Then he came back his sophomore year when they won the title, and they were doing a lot of shuffling around. Like Dugas played a little bit in the outfield, and he came into the infield, and Tommy White got hurt, and they had to move some pieces around, and then Trey Morgan went into the outfield, and then he came back in, and they were deciding whether or not they could put Jared Jones out there, and then they basically settled on the fact that, hey, Pearson is going to play most of the time in left field. And so he won out in that long battle. And then you've got the team from this past year where you decided, hey, we've got Fry, and now he's got to play every day, and want to get Brown at bat, so he's going to play against right-handers, and hey, we still got to see what Ashton Larson's got, and there were a lot of musical chairs there, and Pearson didn't bat an eye at that either. And every great LSU team in all the sports always has some guys on the team that are okay with the reduced role, that don't have to hit third, that don't have to lead the team in catches, that don't have to be the guy that leads the team in scoring in the PMAC. You've got somebody who's just willing to be a role guy. And Josh Pearson on these teams has always been willing to be a role guy. And then when his role was asked to produce, he did. He never hit 340. He never hit 20 homers, but he just always gave you pretty good effort. And he played good defense, and he never complained about it. And so that's going to likely be Josh Pearson's legacy, and that's why he got that ovation in the box in his last game. And so Josh Pearson will always be able to come back to Alec Box and look at that intimidator in right field and go, oh, there's 2 of mine right there. And it's not like he was on the bench for either. He was very much involved in the 2023 team in Omaha. He didn't play in the championship series in 2025, but certainly hit a grand slam in the Super to get him there, and was a big piece to the team that that won that 8th national championship in program history. So we'll see what's next for Josh Pearson. He could sign an undrafted free agent deal or decide to go get a job. Either way, you can't take those 2 national champions and that standing ovation away from him. And he thanked the entire LSU baseball program, including the fans today on social media, which I thought was cool. Jay Johnson responded, "One of the most important players of my entire coaching career. Clutch gene like no other. So many big hits. Elite teammate. 2-time national champion. Winner. Thank you, JP. 4 years of ultimate reliability. Hard to picture LSU baseball without you." So we'll take a timeout. Come back. Hour 2. Talk football on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.